welcome to Healthy Cooking with Shayda. I'm your host, and this is where I teach you how to make simple, healthy, delicious meals that are salt, oil, and sugar-free. But before we get started, if you could please hit that subscribe button and make sure to ring that bell so you will get notified as to when we go live or when our next video is coming out. And if you can please make comments on the YouTube channel. You guys have been great about doing that, and I love answering your questions and anything that you might have to say. I love feedback, so please make sure to do that. Well, today we have a great recipe for you guys, and I know I've made granola for you before, but now the last time I made it, we had apples in there and we had all sorts of stuff in there, but this time we're going to make a simple cranberry granola because summer's coming, and I love making the acai bowls, and I love adding the granola on top of that, so it makes it really nice and delicious. And a lot of you have asked for more granola recipes, so why not? And the granola and the cranberries that I'm using during the winter months when cranberries are available, especially towards November, December, I buy a lot of it and I put it in my freezer and I freeze it. So what we've done here is I've taken the cranberries, I've defrosted them, split them in half, and that's what we're going to use. So this time, I'm not even dehydrating, like before I dehydrated the cranberries before putting it in here. This time I'm not doing that. I'm going to use the whole fresh cranberries into this mix, and it turns out absolutely delicious. So if you guys are ready, let's get started. All right, guys, now, so what does this cranberry granola, what goes in here? So I have got 10 bananas that are in here. So what I like to do is I like to buy bananas, and I like to, once they get really, really ripe, like it gets all that dark spots and brown spots on there, I like to freeze it. So I will get a freezer bag and I'll put 10 of them in there. That way I know exactly how many I have, because that's what this recipe and the previous granola recipe calls for. So these are the frozen bananas that I've had in my freezer, and I just defrosted them and I started mashing them. And you want to make sure that you mash it up with a good masher. Now, a lot of you had asked me before about this masher, and this actually came from Iran. A friend of ours brought it for me, but I have seen this in the Middle Eastern stores. So if any of you are interested, but if you can't find this one, any potato masher will do. You don't have to get exactly what I have, but you want to mash up the bananas so it's totally mashed up. Then we are going to do, you guys know how I feel about the zesting of oranges or lemons or limes, and we're going to do the zest of 3 oranges in here. Okay, so I'm doing the last orange in here, and I wish you guys were here because it smells so freaking good. Oh my God, there's nothing like zesting lemons, limes, oranges, any of that stuff. It just adds so much flavor, and it's going to add so much flavor to this granola. And this granola is really nice and crunchy, guys. And you know, you can eat it on its own, or you can make it, put it in your smoothie bowls, your acai bowls, or you can pour some plant milk on it and eat it that way, however you like. And what we're going to be putting in here, and our sweetener, there's no dates in here, which is kind of nice. Not that dates are bad, but the only sweetener that's really going to be in here are your bananas. So you want to make sure that the bananas are really, really ripe. And then golden raisins. And then that's really about it for sweetener. So, and I've tested this recipe with my non-vegan friends, and that, you know, they like a lot of sweet, and they all liked it. So that's what I'm saying. Make sure that the bananas you use are really, really, really ripe, because that's really the only sweetener that's going to be in here. Now, we don't need the potato masher in here anymore. We're going to put this back here. Now, you're going to want to mix this in really well so it gets well, because you don't want it to clump up like in one little section, which it has a tendency to do sometimes. So you just want to make sure that it's mixed really well. Now, we're going to take our oranges, because guess what? We're going to put the oranges, the juice of the orange, into our granola. This is so simple to make, and Honestly, if you don't like cranberries, you can make this with blueberries. I've done it with blueberries. Just make sure to defrost your, if you have, and I've done it with frozen blueberries, not fresh. So make sure if you're using fresh, then that's fine, not a problem. But if you're using frozen, just make sure it defrosts and then go ahead and use it. And it's really interesting because, you know, they sell the dried cranberries and the dried blueberries and all that. But unfortunately, they add oil to it. And since I'm completely oil free, that's not something I'm going to have. Or sometimes they add the oil and they add a sweetener to it, which honestly, it doesn't need it. So you'll see the difference and you'll taste the difference, especially if you do blueberries in here. You'll see how the blueberries are just going to dehydrate to like little nothings almost. And then it's delicious because there's no added sugar to it or there's no oil on top of it. It's just fantastic. And that's why I love the cranberries, because there's nothing tastier to me than the sweet and sour of the orange and the cranberry. That flavor is just, oh, I love it. And when I gave this to one of my friends, they're like, oh, this needs chocolate. So, you know, you can add chocolate to this, but unfortunately when I put it in the dehydrator, guess what? Kind of gonna make a mess. So if you have friends or relatives or your family members that tell you, oh, can we add chocolate to this? I would add it at the very end, like once everything's dehydrated and you're making a bag for them or something, throw in some chocolate chips in there if you like. And that way they can have a little bit of chocolate with their granola. So once the oranges, the juice goes in here, make sure to incorporate it really well, and it's going to look like that. So that's all ready to go. Next, we're going to add some cinnamon to this. And you'll get the exact measurements of the cinnamon and everything else when you go on my website at healthycookingwithshayda.com. Make sure to mix it. We're also going to add some vanilla powder to this. Now, in my previous videos, I've talked to you guys about vanilla powder. I have found a really, really good one, and it is by La Faza Organic, and this is pure Madagascar ground vanilla. You guys, once you try this, you're not going to go to anything else. This is absolutely so good, so delicious. I can smell it from where I'm standing here. It's that potent. So we're going to add some vanilla powder in here. And some of you may ask why I don't use the liquid vanilla. A lot of times it has the alcohol in there. And I've had a hard time finding alcohol-free vanilla. So for me, it's really a lot easier just to put the powder in here, and it tastes just as good. And I just make the adjustments for the liquid. And with this one, I will put a link in the show notes so you guys can go to my Amazon page and take a look at it and see if this is something you guys want to try. But I promise you, once you try it, you're not going to go to anything else. Now, here's our cranberries. These cranberries were frozen. I let them defrost. Once they defrosted, I sliced them in half. And now we're going to put all that in here. So we're going to mix. Then we are going to add raw pumpkin seeds. And we're also going to add raw sunflower seeds. And we are going to add our sun-dried. Make sure that when you're buying your raisins that it's sun-dried, because if not, they're going to add oil to it again. So this is oil-free, sun-dried, golden raisins. Now, if you want to add the black raisins, I don't see why not. It's whatever you like. I just happen to like the golden raisins. And you want to give this a good stir and a mix, because now we're going to start adding the oats to it. And that's where you're going to want to put a glove on, because you're going to get in with your hands in order to put this on your baking tray or to put it on the Teflix. Well, I'm going to be dehydrating this. This is behind me. It's my Excalibur. It's a 9-tray dehydrator. I have had this for many, many, many years, probably over, I would say 15 years. And these are the sheets that are going to go on. This is called a Teflix. And at first, it's going to start out going on this Teflix, because if not, you don't want to put it on the screen. The screen's going to get all messed up. So we're going to put it on this. And then halfway through, as it's doing its thing in there, we're going to take it and we're going to flip it over and we're going to break up the granola, and then we're going to just leave it on this and then continue dehydrating until the time is up. But I'll talk a little bit more about that. But for those of you that don't have a dehydrator, you can make this in your oven. You're just going to have to keep an eye on it, because I personally have not done it because I've always had the dehydrator, but you're going to have to keep an eye on it. I would probably say do it at 325, and then maybe after a half hour, open up the oven and then check on it and mix it and turn it over or do what you need to do. But it can definitely be made in the oven. So you will need to use your hands, and don't feel bad about using your hands. It's always good, but make sure you put a glove on. Now, we're going to use rolled oats. I buy this from Trader Joe's. It is 100% whole grain oats. It's gluten-free. They've added nothing to this. And so we are going to add probably about 6 cups of oats in here. And when you're making this, make sure you've got a large bowl like I'm using, because it'll make it much easier to mix. So now comes the fun part of mixing all of this together. And I still will mix it with the spoon until we get it ready to go to put it on the Teflix. All right, so this is starting to mix really well. Once you've got it really mixed and ready to go, then we can start to put it on our trays. Now, how do I like to put it on the tray? I literally just take a handful like this and I just push it down. I don't want to flatten it and make it into a square. I like little chunks, little clumps, because like I said, when this dries, I'm going to break this apart and dry it for the rest of the time. Now, if you're making it in the oven, that's going to be a whole different story. If I were putting this in the oven, I would do the same thing. I would do it just like that on your baking tray, and just throw it on there. Don't flatten it out so that it becomes like a one sheet. And I was just talking to Lisa, so she was telling me that she does hers in the oven as well, and she does it at 325. And I believe she said after 15 minutes she flips it. So I think that's a good rule of thumb for you guys to check on it after 15-20 minutes and see where it's at, and then flip it to make sure that it gets really, really dry. What you don't want to do is have moisture in here, because if you do, then that's where you're going to get bacteria. So you want to make sure you don't do that. You want to make sure that your granola is super, super dry. So I'm going to continue to do this until I get all 4 trays ready to go, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like when it's completed. Okay guys, my last tray is going in, and then we are going to close this, and I'm going to turn it on, and it's going to go at 145. So halfway through, so this is going to go for 24 hours basically. So at the 12-hour mark, basically what I do is if my granola was on this, I take it, and then I'll take that off and I'll put it on here, and then I'll flip it over, remove this from the granola, and then my granola is going to be on here. If everything's clumped up together, I will go through and break it up so that there's even clusters, because I like clusters. I like clusters of granola, whether it's small or big, it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. I just don't want it to be a flat, like a cookie sheet. So then I'll put everything on here, then I'll put it back in the dehydrator for another 24 hours. Okay guys, It's the moment of truth. So let's open that dehydrator and see where we're at. Now, when you open this, this is not going to be hot. It's not going to be like the oven where it gets really, really hot. And the good thing about using a dehydrator is that you don't have to worry about it burning. One thing, if you're going to make this in the oven at 325, you've got to keep an eye on it because it will burn. So I suggest even going lower, maybe going in at 225 or 200 degrees. Yes, it will take much longer for it to get crunchy into where you need it to be, but you also don't want to risk it as, you know, burning your granola. So that's the other thing. So we're going to take the tray out. As you can see, they're in clusters, and that's what we want. We want clusters. We don't want it to be like a cookie or a sheet or anything like that. Then you're going to pick it up from both sides. And all we're going to do is we are going to, can you hear that? It's nice and crunchy. We're going to put it in our bowl. And we're going to take the second tray. I'm so excited. These look so good. And the house smells so good when you make your own granola. Honestly, it's really hard to find even granola. Even if you go to the store and you buy granola, it's really hard to find it without the oil, without all this other stuff that they put in there. And it's so easy for you to make on your own. Yes, you can find dried cranberries without oil, but it's really, really hard to find it. And if you do find it, it is really expensive. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to try one because I've been waiting all night basically to try this. It's so crunchy. It's so good. It's sweet enough. You don't need to add any more sweetener to it. And what I love about it is you can taste the hint of orange along with the cranberry, and I think that combination is really delicious. Now, for those of you that may not like oranges, do this with lemon. You know, you can replace it all with lemon. You can even do lemon and orange, cut it in half. I think the combination of the two would be great. But please don't forget the zest. The zest is one of the important things that needs to go in here. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching another episode of Healthy Cooking with Shayda. It's been a pleasure to be here. I hope you guys tried this recipe. Please give it a thumbs up if you like it. And please make sure to comment on YouTube if you guys make this and how you like it. I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, be safe, be well. Remember, it's one bite at a time, one meal at a time, and we'll see you with the next video.